So we're going to read through the Ramban together. I'm going to start with the beginning, then we'll skim over a little, and we'll come back and read word for word from 8 lines down. Okay? So the Ramban starts off, Achar shebi'ar Torat hakarbanot b'sefer hashlishi, התחילה לסדר בספר הזה מצוות שנצטוו בעניין אוהל מועד. So it says, after all the karbanot in Sefer Shlishi, which is Sefer Vayikra, it starts here in this Sefer to talk about all the mitzvot of Ohel Moed. It already talked about Tumad HaMikdash. It continues all. This is where we're going to skim over. All these things are talking about Kedusha and Tumad Tahara, and it's all Lidorot. It's for generations. And it talks about, it connects back to what was talked about by Har Sinai, that it talked about Kedusha there and what would happen if you approached Har Sinai. So we're coming off of all of these more like ideal mitzvot, bigger ideas, Tumah and Tahara, things that aren't so tangible. They're more in the spiritual realm. So then we're going to come back together on the 8th line. V'hasefer hazeh kulo b'mitzvot shah shenitztavu b'hem ba'amdam b'midbar u'v'nisim hana'asim lahem l'saper kol ma'aseh Hashem asher asa imahem lahafli. V'siper ki hachal latit oivehem lifneihem l'charev v'tziva ich tichalek ha'aretz lahem v'im b'sefer hazeh mitzvot nohagot l'dorot dil tiktzat mitzvot inyanei hakarbanot shehilchil b'hen hasefer kohanim lo nishlam bi'uran sham v'hishliman b'sefer hazeh. So what the Ramban is saying is we still have some of these mitzvot, but very few. We have very few mitzvot in Sefer Bamidbar. We have more, we have stories, and we have mitzvot that were to them at the time. We don't have mitzvot l'dorot. It's talking more about practical things that happened to them then. The Ramban is focusing and saying there's a shift in the Torah at this point. It goes from the ideal and the big and the grand and the things that will last us forever to Sefer Bamidbar is when everything gets real. It changes and there's a realization of we're going into Eretz Yisrael. We're about to have enemies put before us. We're about to have challenges that we have to deal with. And the appearance of miracles of Hashem isn't going to be as clear. We're not going to so clearly see the Kedusha of the Mishkan. We're not going to have that. We're going to have the enemy standing before us, and we're going to need to know what to do. We're going to need to know how to act in that moment. So the Ramban is saying the Midbar was like our basic training, and especially Sefer Bamidbar was like our basic training for going into Eretz Yisrael. It was taking us from the broad and the big, which had to be our foundation, and it was transforming into the more concrete, the more real. The more we're going into Eretz Yisrael, what do we do then, and how do we be prepared for the situation? So at this point, everyone would stop and write on the few lines below the Ramban the explanation of what you think the Ramban is talking about. Then I would move on and have the girls learn the Chavrusa.
Yeah.
A quick
I have a key. I'm not generally here, but
article by Rabbi Michael Hatin, who summarizes beautifully the ideas in the Ramban. I just wanted to highlight a few lines that are underlined. Receiving a new set of norms and rituals, they offered formal acceptance and perfunctory performance, but remained far from the ideal of being spiritually transformed. He's saying, in Sefer Shemo at Har Sinai, they accepted the mitzvah. They took it all on themselves, but they weren't spiritually ready. They weren't, as much as they had Shloshei Me'Hagbala, they prepared themselves. They weren't really on the level to get it. Remaining at the foot of the mountain for close to a year, they solidified their commitment and slowly adapted to a new way of life. Preparing to break up camp to commence their journey to the Promised Land, they were still bereft of the precious possessions of complete trust in God and recognition of utter dependence on His providence. So Bnei Yisrael were still lacking something. Even once they got the Torah, they stayed at Har Sinai for a year. They definitely grew closer, but they didn't have that complete dependence on Hashem. So he goes on to say that this is where Sefer Bamidbar comes in. It was their journey. It was their time spent in the desert. It was all this together that built up the critical dependence of Hashem. Because going into Eretz Yisrael, when they're going to be faced with all these challenges, they could have thought, oh, look what we're able to do. So they had